listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello.
It's really quite odd, isn't it, having the sort of the juxtaposition of this podcast from the one 2 weeks ago where we were talking about winning at Wembley, and then this one where, albeit with an air of inevitability about it, we're talking about, a second relegation in 5 years?
Yeah, bloody idiots.
How do they feel, Neil? How does this one feel compared to the Championship one?
It's quite hard to sort of explain it, because I always felt that League One was a disgrace, being in League One. So the notion that next year we're going to be playing in League Two is kind of... I'm not sure if it's ever going to be one that I'm going to be able to sort of accept, or sort of next year when I will end up going to games. I know I will. When I go to watch it, whether I'll be able to sort of absorb it. It just feels so odd, because when you start your life watching a team which is just so embedded as a top tier team, and I know it's been ages since then, but in my mind they are still. That's why I supported them. I could have supported a crap local club. I could have supported Racing Club Warwick if I wanted to go lower down the leagues, but I didn't. I supported the big team because I was an idiot kid and I wanted to support the big local team. And now it's just, I just find it very hard to sort of accept that this has been allowed to happen. I say allowed to happen. I mean, nobody's just said, okay, let's go get relegated. It's not that simple. But being here, we're knowing that next year we're going to be watching at such a low level of football. And let's face it, it is. When you go to the grounds, it's going to be a real old kick in the teeth.
Well, this is the really interesting thing about it, because we've been in League One for so long now. Have you looked through the teams in League Two?
Oh, Dent. Who we got?
Well, since we've been in League One, we've played league games against Leyton Orient, Hartlepool, Crawley, Crewe, Yeovil, Notts County, Colchester, Carlisle, Blackpool.
Well, last time we played top flight games. I mean, Luton. I've seen us play in the top flight against Luton and Notts County. You know, we played Crewe in the Championship. Blackpool obviously have been in the Premier League in the last 5-6 years.
But it's not League Two.
No.
I just missed your point, but the way I see it is kind of... there are a lot of football fans who kind of love that side of it and love sort of the ground hopping and seeing all these cool, like, edgy grounds, but it's just... It really isn't for me. I don't know. It's just that compounded with the level as well. I mean, I can handle if we're in the Championship playing Stockport, because at least we were in the Championship or Division 1 as it was, and it's kind of, you know, you take it for what it is, but compound it with League Two football, you know, only a league away from the bloody, I'm going to call it the Vauxhall Conference just to really demean it, but you know, a league away from that is just, it's dreadful.
Actually, my point was more about how I think there's one thing to have had some sort of absolute crisis in the way that Portsmouth or Blackpool did, where they would have suffered successive relegations and been down there. The fact that we're going to hit League Two and it doesn't feel like some alien country in terms of the grounds that we'll be going to is more indicative of just how chronically bad and depressing it is. I've been to loads of these grounds. That's how fucked we are. We should be going to League Two and going, this is so weird, but it won't be. There's like a bit of it where it's not going to be like environmentally that strange, and it's like a weekly reminder of just what a fucking shit show the club is now.
Worrying, very worrying for me, because it's also a reminder of kind of our mindset as a club and how we're almost accepting of this
like
as being our level.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, this is our level now, so we just need to accept it. And I don't feel that... I don't think that's us on this podcast. I think we're all pretty bloody annoyed about where we are as a level. But there's another element where that message is always forced home. Or it's our level. Come on, it's just our level now. And I'm just like, I don't want to be this level, but it's not our level. Look at the size of our fucking stadium. And I know that shouldn't be an indicator, but it is, in my mind, an indicator of what we are as a club and what we should be. So Ooh, dear me.
But I think it absolutely should be an indicator, because it's an indicator of economy, and as we're well aware, economy is quite often the deciding factor in football, isn't it? And that's partly why it's so stark how awful it is. If we had had a sort of brief period in the sun because of a cash injection that's no longer there, but it's not. We're the size of City that deserves to be bigger, and that economy is based on fans going on a regular basis. And if you look at our attendances, even this season, they're some of the highest in League One. I'm going to hope that that's true. They've got to be in the top 6, I would have thought.
No, yeah, we're top 10, I think, average attendance.
Yeah, but in
League
League
I think
Two,
most of our bigger ones are obviously right up there.
But at League Two, that will increase even further. It's ludicrous. Sorry, Paul, go on.
Well, and this goes back to what I've been saying basically since the day we started doing this: is there is no one leading this club. Like, people calling for Tim Fisher to go, and I had a big argument with Pritchard about this, and he was like, well, if he goes, then we'll just get someone else in, and no one will believe what he says, and 6 months later he might resign. It's like, but at the moment, the football club is, as far as I'm aware, rudderless. Like, I know Tim Fisher is the nominal whatever he is title he has, but he's just, whatever way you look at it, he's just brought failure. So, in the same way that Slade got sacked because he failed, Fisher should go because he's failed. Doesn't matter what barometer we put on it, in terms of attendances, they're falling, league position falling, income falling. Every single way you look at a business, we've failed under Tim Fisher. And I know it doesn't matter, but Tim Fisher is a symbol of Sisu, and he's just a symbol of a club that's in decline, run by owners who don't give a shit. And we can't go on with this. And they released the season ticket prices last week. And I know people are like, oh yeah, but it's only £13 a ticket, rah, rah. It doesn't. We had the optimism after Wembley, and they killed it in 1 second by going, we're going to charge you £300 for a season ticket. And it's like, well, why? Why are you doing that? What? I know you can say, oh, it's the average for League Two. It's not that. But it's like, we've got a 30,000-seater stadium that's already two-thirds empty. We're dropping down a division, and instead of turning around and going, okay, we're going to try and work with the fans, we're going to sort of look at it from your point of view for a second and go, the club's in decline, we're shit. But what we need to make this club better is a decent relationship between the fans and the club. They've gone, okay, we're going to keep ticket prices the same. Then Tim Fisher comes out and goes, well, it's because we don't have any revenue stream, rah, rah. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but you've got to take some responsibility for that. You could have bought the Rico, and you never did. Now, I'll always blame the council for selling it to Wasps. That's down to the council, but that doesn't get Sisu away from the fact they could have bought the ground, they could have got those income streams, and they never did it. And now it's like, well, if you'd have what you could have done if you wanted to go, well, we're going to put this responsibility on the fans. So we want a budget of 3 million, and we'll put season ticket prices at 200 quid. So if we sell 15,000, that gives our budget of 3 million. If we fail to meet it, well, we've reduced season tickets to 200 quid, so we've done our part. It's down to you. But going, oh, they're 300 quid, and it's basically, well, we've got another income, so you've got to foot the bill. It's like, well, that's fine, but you can't keep doing that. Like, the fans have footed the bill for this season, and they've seen utter shit. All the players have actually liked have been sold. So we've had a season of utter shit, and you're asking us to pay the same amount for a division below. It's just, well, where's the incentive with that? Neil's talking about not getting a season ticket from what I'm inferring.
And that's the key point, isn't it? Because more than ever, they need to give people a reason to come.
Yeah. And
the Checkatrade Trophy went part way to doing that, because it got, especially young kids, it got kids interested in it. And then admittedly, some of that is dissipated because of going down. It just we got whooped up into the hoopla of winning that trophy, and then some people have suddenly come back to ground a little bit. But my point in my mind was that, okay, because of everything that's gone on, we've won that trophy. I was starting to feel a bit more positive about it, and I kind of already knew we were going down, so I'd made my peace with that, as much as annoying as it is. But that just seeing the whole 300 quid for a season ticket in a league below, that's not giving me a reason to come back. And I know it shouldn't just be all about money, but I needed something. I needed anything, even 50 quid off, something like that. And we say 50 quid, what is it? But that would have made a difference. I would have looked at it and said, okay, right, they've nudged it down. It's 250. Okay, because I'm an idiot. I'm a football. I see numbers and I thought 300 is a lot, 250 isn't as much. That would be enough for me. But they had to not even make a single effort to encourage those floating supporters. It just, I don't understand it. I don't understand where they're coming from.
The problem for me is I think that they could have, at the very least, tried to call people's bluff a bit. I think the main thing that I see a lot of that I don't agree with at all is people saying, well, if they were 150 quid, we'd sell X number of thousand tickets and blah, 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 and work out the economy that way. But there is a way to artificially do this, and Hartlepool did it about 4 years ago, where they said that they would refund. They had a target financially that they wanted to get from season ticket sales, and they would either do it by selling X, like one at £10,000 or 10 at £1,000, like that, basically. And depending on a certain date, well, however many had been sold, people would have to pay the full price up front, but they would be refunded whatever had been, whatever at that point. And that way they can effectively say, well, they are as cheap. You can make them as cheap as you want, basically, but you've just got to make sure that we sell them. And I think that is fine. But actually, the 300 quid, I completely agree with you, Neil. Even a tokenistic knockoff would have made a huge difference. I had a look. The BBC do that really comprehensive price of football study. The average cost of a League Two season ticket, I think, was rounded up about 260 quid. So I understand that we don't have the revenues and all the other stuff that Fisher was saying, and that we need to make that up from ticket sales. But it's still, actually, that's a phenomenal increase. Off the top of my head, that's what, 15% up on above the average League Two season ticket price? And I think effectively, when you look at it in terms of a sort of market value thing, you are paying the same, literally, and I know that football often doesn't work like this, but you are paying the exact same price for a massively inferior product. And it just doesn't stack up. And you just think, going back to your point, Paul, and I'll hand it back over to you now, is you just think, you haven't got a clue how to do this, have you? You could have done something even really small that would have just engaged the fans a bit, and you just haven't.
The thing is, we're a unique case. Whichever way you look at these things, you look at every other team in League Two, they're a different situation from what we've been in. No one's, there's only 2 or 3 other clubs who've had the season we've had. But this is, we're now talking 5 seasons of being in League One with owners everyone hates. And you're just thinking, well, no one else in League Two has got, I think, probably once the teams have got promoted, the biggest stadium when we're down next season will probably be teams with 15,000. We've got 30,000 seats to sell. So it's just like we can't always compare like with like. Coventry City is a unique situation. No one's suffered the amount of shit league performances we have year in, year out. And, we've got a big fan base who have, over the years, have been worn away by shit. And the thing is, they went on, not all of them, as we know, but a large proportion went to the game at Wembley. And a lot of them came back generally excited about supporting the football club again. They knew we were going to get relegated, but there was a genuine excitement. And you're like, if you'd have sold it for 200, the thing is, it's like, to get to 600, you've got to sell 3 at 200 or 2 at 300. But you hear the amount of people going, I'm not buying one for 300. It's like, well, it would have been easy to get them. You put off, the amount of people you put off at 300 is far outweighing the amount of people you would have encouraged at 200 or 250. And that's the situation we're at. We're at the stage where people like Neil, who will happily spend 250, because it's all about, it's a symbol, it's just fucking, it's only 50 quid. But if Neil doesn't go, that 300 quid's got to be then spread over 6 other season ticket holders. It just spreads even wider. You need more season ticket holders at 300 than you do at 200. And it's like you haven't got though. The goodwill's gone. You've got to understand the goodwill has gone. Even for people who were sort of everything else was like, I was still going to go. And it's like, it's 300 quid. No, you've overstepped the mark. And you're like, it's been a fucking hard push to push people like Neil over the line, and finally they've done it. And you're like, well, who benefits from this? No one. We're going to play in a stadium with 5,000 in. It's like, well, how the fuck does that help anyone? And like, fair play to Mark Robins, he's going, we need to pull together, and it's like, that's fine, but you fucked off a couple of years ago. You know, it's like, no, you know, we all would if we were offered the situation, but all that we've got to pull together, and it's like, well, because it's got to be a little bit of give and take. The only way I see it at the moment is I'm the one who's having to give, and do you know what I've given? 30 years of my fucking life to a team that's now in the 4th tier of English football. Like, what am I getting out of this? I've got one day at Wembley in 30 years. It's like, I'm sorry. It's just that's not good enough. But yeah, again, it's me who has to shell out the money. And it's like, well, what if I say no? What if the group of us a couple of years ago, when we were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of us, is now down to there were 4 of us there on Saturday.
Wow, that's okay.
But I mean, Jimbo, who you know what we mentioned, doesn't miss games. He was on holiday. He was like, I'll come back, and he couldn't be fucked. And you're like, well, these are die-hard people who can't be asked because they're sick of watching shit football. They're sick of paying lots of money for shit football. They're sick of just the turnover of players. Like, fucking sent this to the lads earlier. Our 6th highest league appearance player this season is Lewis Page with 22. That's not even, we play 46 games in the season. The 6th highest has only managed 22. And that was Lewis fucking Page, who we shouldn't have signed anyway. You're like, I don't want to watch shit footballers. I don't want to pay £300 to watch shit footballers in a shit league with no one else there. But that's the situation we sort of find ourselves in. You're like, well, at least if you'd have gone, okay, it's 200, it's 250, you might have got more season ticket holders because there was that enthusiasm. People were generally excited. People were excited by Mark Robins coming back and the fact we were beginning to win games again. And you've killed all that goodwill. How do you do that? How do you suck that much goodwill out of fans every fucking time?
It's astonishing. I think it's probably worth going back to a point you were talking about maybe 10 minutes ago now, which was around Fisher's position at the club. And I think we're pretty cautious when it comes to managerial firings because I think we try and be empathetic to the idea of there being a person behind it. But as you say, on any measure imaginable, bar the sort of, and this is my fear, is bar the kind of breaking the club even, which really was predicated on the sale of Wilson and Maddison, I suppose. But on what metric would you look at and say that if you're his boss, and say that his tenure at the club has been anything other than disaster doesn't even do it justice. But yet, I don't feel like his position is under particular scrutiny from... Well, and I guess there'd be no way that we could tell that outside of, well, God knows. But also, my fear is that if he were to leave, I would fear that people would just go, whoever replaced him, they'd go, well, it's just, another, Hydra's head that was popped up after one has been cut off and it's still the same evil body. I don't know whether we'd give someone a chance.
But I think the problem is, it's like, whatever happens now, the fans' relationship with Sisu is so far gone, you can't imagine there being any sort of reconcile. But the fact is, for there to be any reconcile, that can't be done with Tim Fisher.
No, clearly.
So you sort of, even if he's the messenger, and we get a new messenger in to be shot at, but the thing is, it's like, he is the symbol of Sisu because he's the only one we've got. We've got him and Joy. And Joy is basically the puff of smoke in the background. So we've got Tim Fisher. And you're like, at least if he went, some fans might start to think, oh, okay, there is something there. They might care about us a little bit. But by him continuing to be there, he's just another symbol of failure. And that's what he is to 99% of Cov fans. He's just, since he's been here, we've failed. And as you say, there's almost like, well, what is his remit? Because you're not telling me the club's more financially beneficial to be in League 2 than it is in League 1. So, what is he, to some extent, what's he gaining out of being here still? Is he going to turn the club round? I don't get the feeling he's going to seasons demanding things, because if he is, he's failing. So,
that's what gets me. Out of this? That's what really gets me, because they keep throwing these sort of business and economic reasons at us. So when we just sort of have our sort of hearts in our sleeve and just talk about football, and we throw all these sort of what they deem unrealistic ideals about how a football team should be and a football club should be run, they'll throw all this business logic at us and say, well, we can't do it because of this. If you're going to throw business logic at us, be judged on your own business logic. And that's the worst part, because he's not performed in a business sense. So why can we keep getting sort of bamboozled by all these sort of measures? We just told her, you won't understand. This is the business of football. And yet he's failing clearly at the business of football. So just there's no reason for him to still be in charge. If you're judging him, or sort of Joy, whoever is his boss, is looking at his performance saying, well, it's not a good performance in any way, shape or form. It's not a good performance. So how are we still here?
Well, go on. Sorry.
Oh, it was just one final point, and it was kind of what I said after the match. It's more to do with sort of the broader season point, where it's just I'm so fed up with that cloud, that sideshow. Kind of, it's always there. That excuse is always there, no matter what happens. But there was always, we've got Sisu, they're in charge, and I just want them gone so much now. Even if it's not, maybe, I'm pretty sure it's for the same reason as everybody else, but if anything, I just want them gone so that we don't have that sideshow anymore, so we don't have that excuse available to us whenever things go wrong on the pitch. I don't want to be able to point to what's going off the pitch and say, because we can't understand that. I just want to be able to look at the football and make judgments on that, not on stuff on the pitch, because it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the things that I would pick up on. So firstly, you talked about the business of football, and I guess they need to be split up into two things. They need to be split up into business and football. And in terms of business, the club and the financial entity behind the club do lose less money than they had previously. They have to put less in than they had previously. And to that measure, I guess there isn't, and I'm sure that people will be throwing their phones across the room here, and hear me out on it. To that measure, I should imagine he is doing a job that they do find satisfactory in the short term, albeit that League 2 will put a massive dampener on that, and the fact that there isn't a Maddison or a Callum Wilson left. Ben Stevenson wouldn't have commanded a fee like that, and now in League 2 will command less. And there isn't, outside of the possibility of Jordan Ponticelli perhaps, but that everyone tells me that he's nowhere near ready, etc., etc. That golden goose it's not there, is it? Secondly, let me just finish. Secondly, and the business of football, the business of football isn't business. The business of football is football. And that is the only thing that matters. If you get into... Their business plan was to get us up to the Premier League within 3 years when we were in the Championship, and it failed. There has to be a realisation. And I know that they're a hedge fund and a blah, 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 blah. But there is a responsibility to be held that if you fail, you should lose money. That's the nature of it. And if you don't want to lose the money, sell the club. Get rid of it and move out. Don't try and bust us by making yourself sort of like break even at the detriment of the football side. That isn't a success. It might be in a business sense, but it's not a business. And I can't stand how in recent years, I guess it's a slow rot over the last 20 or so, football clubs are run like businesses. And I just don't know when that was allowed to happen. How did it ever
Huge
get
conflict,
so...
isn't it?
Because the owner should only ever really be a steward who just looks after the club before passing it on to somebody else, without looking to be profiting out of it. It doesn't make any sense. It's not it shouldn't be a business model. And it's what is throwing clubs to the wall now. And there's no protection for them. Leyton Orient are fucked again. Well, Leyton Orient are the next one to be absolutely fucked. Because no one's looking after them. It's just vile, isn't it? Sorry, Paul, go on.
I'll throw 2 points in. One, I understand, and I understand your point about the fact that the owners of the custodian football club, you shouldn't be looking to make a profit. But then should every owner be like the Brighton owner who's just going to throw £250 million at it? There's got to be a middle ground, hasn't there, between football clubs being owned by people who aren't taking money out, but there again, not every football club can be run by someone who's just willing to spunk millions and millions of pounds on it. There has to be a middle ground, surely. And that's that's the hardest thing in, there are only a certain amount of clubs where that middle ground seems to be going all right. There's teams like Arsenal, West Brom, teams like that who are Burnley, who are well run and also don't seem to have a mega rich financial backer who's covering their losses each season. But those, there are very few clubs like that, and that's a difficult line to tread, isn't it? Now we want CC to invest, but also I can, again, throwing phones across the room, I can also understand where people go, well, we're not customers, we're supporters, and you're like, yeah, that's fine. So we've got to put our money in, put our money where our mouth is. But there again, I expect CC to put their money where their mouth is. I don't expect it to be just me, because businesses grow by the owners investing in that business. So I think it has to be, for me, I like to see it sort of 50-50 or, 60-40 in favour of them more than 60-40 in favour of me, where it's like, we're in this together. Coventry City only succeeds, and this goes back to my other point, is the golden goose which is left is the fact we have a 32,000-seater stadium and a fan base that could fill it. In League Two, no one can contend with that. No one can rival that. And if we sold 32,000 or 32,000 tickets week in, week out, we would be the richest club in League Two, because that's how the lower leagues are financially sorted. We should be able to go in, and by selling 32,000 season tickets, we should be the richest club in League Two.
I mean, that's why I hate them more than anything else. It's actually, I think I'll get crucified for saying this, it's not so much the lack of investment or perceived lack of investment, it is the fact that we now have what they've done with the relationship around getting that stadium. Because you've said we got that stadium, and in reality, we don't. We're in a situation where we're so unclear about what our future is with regards to a home, and that's what gets me, because that stadium was built for us. And if we had that we immediately become more sort of viable to any sort of buyer who wants to come in and so, okay, we've got a stadium here. At the moment, it's just a rental agreement which ends next year, and then what happens after that? I mean, I just can't see any situation where we got sort of solidify that relationship and it becomes more sort of sustainable over the course of a period of time which is more than just 3 years, which we're going on at the moment. It's because when it comes to investment, I think we kind of hide behind it a lot of the time, especially like last year. People keep going on about they didn't invest. That team last year was absolutely incredible, the players we had there. So I don't see it so much as lack of investment there, but there have been periods over this sort of 10-year tenure where they've kind of given up on the team over different seasons, and that's what's got me. It's like, well, you're either in it or you're not in it. Manage it like a football club or don't. But if you're not prepared to do it, then you really shouldn't be in control of it at all. And it's kind of, they just sort of, some seasons they'll say, okay, we're gonna back you, and then some next seasons, like the one where we went down from the Championship, it was just, they pretty much gave up on us, didn't they? It was just incredible how that was allowed to happen, and I don't see that being the case next year. I'm sure we'll get back to the point where we're probably the 8th biggest budget in League Two or something stupid like that. But I don't know whether that's a reason for them to say they've supported us. And I mean, there's so much beyond the money that they've failed at. The relationships, the whole sort of untenable relationship with the fans as well. It's just, that's the utter failure, I think.
I mean, the question, we were discussing this on Saturday, and I know on Friday, and I know we'll probably discuss it at the end of season podcast, is how much do you blame Sisu for the fact we got relegated? And for me, the reason we got relegated is the Mowbray just woeful signings in the summer, and then the fact he just didn't know what he was doing for the whole of 2 months. And the Slade appointment. The Slade appointment was just a joke, and it's just the more you think of the wasted games, the Bury game, the Swindon game. In fact, the games all against the bottom 5 or 6 were under Slade, and we managed to beat Gillingham. The rest of them we either drew or lost, mainly lost. And you were like, a better manager with that team, or a better manager in January with, could have brought in better signings. And I know we haven't got onto it amazingly after doing this for about 40 minutes. One of my 2 moments of the week was the irony of us getting relegated with Kevin Foley as captain. And you're like, that sort of sums this season up.
Yeah, and he was on the front page of the programme as well.
Yeah, I mean...
he was, weren't he? God.
The guy started 10 league games for us. The guy should never have been signed, let alone made 10 league appearances. But the fact he was captain the moment we got relegated, you were like, that's a symbol. That is an utter symbol of the shit. Just the way this club's been run this season, from the shit signings to the fact he was on the pitch, right? We'll go on to the Charlton game in a minute. But when Kevin Foley being on the pitch in a game that we needed to win was just like, this is just a farce. This whole symbol, and I sound like I'm slagging. I don't know the guy. The guy might be lovely, but he's clearly not up to the level that we needed. And he's kept people like Biggie, Stevenson out the team. He's cost Dion Kelly-Evans about 7 games. The guy should never have been signed. But the fact he was captain, the point we got relegated, you were like, that'll go down. I'll remember that for the rest of my life as him being the guy who was captain at that point. It was such a symbol of what a waste of season this has been. And it's like, you look at people like him, again, going back to Lewis Page playing 22 times, he's cost basically Ryan Haynes half the season. You're like, these were just shit signings. Woeful players that in 20 years' time, we're like, can you remember Lewis Page? No. Can you remember what he did with his career? No. You're like, that's what this season's been about, just nothing players playing shit. And my other moment of the week was at full time when a lot of people went down to the front. You were like, there's going to be an on the pit, there's going to be a riot. And the final whistle went, and everyone just sort of stood there in sort of silence going, oh, now what do we do?
I want to get back to the programme thing very quickly and then move on to the Charlton game. Do you know who was on the programme when we got relegated from the Championship?
Someone did post this, but it was the guy out of that band that you don't like.
It was the guy from The Enemy. Again, not a coincidence that on our darkest moments, 2 of the worst people in the world were on the programmes.
Well, has he done something to you, Joey?
No, he hasn't. I'm not a big fan of The Enemy, and I'm a big drama queen. Let's move on to the Charlton game, shall we? Somebody on Twitter, forgive me, I'll ask the question and I'll dig out their name afterwards, asked you, Paul, what do you think was the thought process behind playing lone players in that game? It was... Oh dear, this is bad filling. Why Robbins played lone players on Saturday? That was Mike Smith asked the question.
On Friday, did he?
Wasn't Riley in the team? Oh no, Riley's not a lone player. In fact, yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, Riley didn't play on Monday or Friday. He played on Monday.
Yeah, and in fact, Mike Smith, there was no game on Saturday, so.
But yeah, no, there were no lone players on the pitch on.
Rawson.
Oh, Rawson. Yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Okay.
Win the game, would have thought.
I would have thought, yeah, he saw Rawson as being a better bet than Kean Harris. And from what I understand, Rawson's last couple of performances haven't been that bad. So I understand that. I don't understand why he didn't have Dion Kelly-Evans on the pitch. I mean, on the bench. I don't understand why we keep playing Jordan Willis when he's clearly not fit. I mean, to give Jordan Willis his due, I thought he had quite a good game on Friday, and him bombing forward was definitely a bonus because it benefited the team, basically. Who would have thought having a fullback ahead of their winger would help, and working closely with their winger would help in the team tack. The Charlton game, we played in our 4-4-1-1 with Ruben Ramirez behind Bevan. They should have taken the lead. They hit the bar with a header. We then took the lead from a short corner routine, which was really weird because we never score from short corners.
Did you hear the drone?
When we took the short corner.
Drone. Oh, hang on, we scored. People pretending they didn't really groan. No, I heard you.
It doesn't justify the 300,000 or 400,000 free short corners I've seen over the years, which haven't resulted in a goal.
And the stats suggest that you've actually got a better chance of scoring from a short corner.
Yeah.
I'll have to get the numbers out somewhere. I'm sure it was in the book somewhere. The Bible.
But whether or not that involved Coventry short corners or just short corners in general, because I can't remember us ever scoring from a short corner before. So, but it looked like it was quite a good routine, and George Thomas popped up to get his fourth league goal of the season, 8 in total. So hopefully he'll push 9 or 10 before the end of the season, which is probably not a bad return from George. And getting 4, he puts him joint top league goal scorer. So, kudos to George Thomas for scoring 4 league goals.
Really?
Yeah.
With Sordell?
Got 4. Sordell's got 4.
Oh my God.
Stuart Bevan, I think, has got 1 league goal. Might have 2.
No, 2, I think.
Got 2 league
goals
goals
in his debut, yeah.
So he's got 2. But and we're not really discussing the Charlton game for long. To be fair to Bevan, we look a better team when Bevan's in it. Yeah. But Bevan still doesn't look like a goal scorer to me. He doesn't seem to have that many chances. He's not like he's got bad technique. It's just he doesn't look like a natural goal scorer. He doesn't get shots away early. He doesn't get that many chances in the box to have shots. And, we said this when he signed, his stats from a goal scoring point of view don't look very good. I turned to Jimbo on his day and went, he has to get, if we're going to stay up, he has to get around about 10 goals. And he's got 2.
Can I do some boring tactics for a second?
Go on.
Leicester, this season, I think there was a lot of emphasis on Ranieri leaving and Shakespeare taking over and that being the catalyst. But one of the things that Shakespeare did when he came back in was he stuck Okazaki back in next to Vardy instead of playing Slimani so prominently. And I just think Okazaki scored maybe 6 goals or something last season, but I think he facilitated a tremendous amount of Vardy's goals. And I don't mean that he directly assisted them, but Okazaki is all clever running all over the place and dragging people out of position, and he's just a really smart forward. And I think it's odd that you would play, even though it's worked, well, it's not really worked, but it's not looked as terrible as it should be on paper, but the Bevan and Lemiras, that doesn't ring as true to me as Bevan playing next to a goal scorer. I quite like the idea of that dynamic of having 2 wide players of different abilities. One, like a sort of Carl Reed-esque person who would stick to the line and put crosses in, and then a different type of wide player on the other side. Then Bevan next to our goal scorer. That works, but I don't think he should be the pinnacle of your attacking focus. Anyway, carry on.
No, I agree. I think Bevan's fine if you've got someone else alongside who's going to score. And
I should have just said that, shouldn't I? That was a much better way of saying it.
And it worked against Peterborough because Ruben Ramirez scored. And it's worked in some other games because George Thomas has scored. It just didn't work. And you could tell the difference when Bevan went off at half-time. In the second half, Kwame Thomas didn't really know where he was meant to be. He doesn't look as comfortable as the lone striker, in my opinion. I think he needs Bevan alongside him as well. And the other thing is, you look at that team in the start of the second half. Once Bevan's gone off, I could be wrong. I think I'm correct in saying the oldest player was Burge at 24. everyone else on the pitch was 23 or younger. And they looked at the first 15 minutes of the second half, they were all enthusiasm. Charlton equalised, but there was still something there. And that was, it was facilitated by Willis getting to the byline, getting forward. There was still that optimism. Once Willis went off and Foley came on, you were just like, okay, this game's dead now. Because Foley just can't run. I mean, the guy can't. He did all right against Peterborough. They play 3-5-2 he can't leave his position when the opposition play a winger because he knows he's not quick enough to get back. So suddenly, that outlet went, and it was just like, oh, okay, we got nothing now. And as I said to you before the pod, one of the things that got me about the last, and it's what I said last week, where sort of Neil asked if I was being serious. Because we basically limply got relegated on Friday. The last 20 minutes, there was nothing, really. I don't think we had a shot. We didn't force a corner. We didn't really do anything in the last 20 minutes. We just limply got relegated. And you were like, well, we could have done this against Peterborough. We could have limply got relegated then. If we'd have put Rawson up front with 20 minutes to go and we need to win this game. But we didn't. We just settled for a 1-1 draw. And, the last couple of home games, we got a bit lucky. Like, Port Vale was shit. Bristol Rovers away form isn't that great. We played all right. Peterborough, Dave didn't really have anything to play for, and we played all right. We played better. The problem with Charlton is Charlton did have something to play for, and they didn't want to lose. And it was the first time in a while, in a league game, we'd played a team who didn't really want to lose. And to be fair to Charlton, it was they deserved the equaliser. It was probably a 1-1 draw type of game, but you never got the feeling that we never went to do or die. We just went to we might do this. We're 1-0 up, and then they equalised. It was like, oh, we won't, and you were like, I want something more. So and this is sort of I didn't see, and I know it's hard to sort of criticise Robbins. I just didn't see anything from anyone. I didn't see, we've got relegated. We were always going to get relegated. It was a very, very big ask. But at the end of the day, we got relegated because we drew 1-1 at home with Charlton without trying to win the game. And that just hurts a little bit. If we'd have lost that game 2-1, 3-1, but we'd have fucking nailed them and they got 2 on the counter, you'd be like, we did everything we could to not get relegated that day. And I never really felt we did. I just felt we got relegated. It was, it was coming. It's always been coming. But I would just and as I said, we could have done that against Peterborough. A week before. If you're going to go down by not trying or not do or dying, just do that as early as possible because I could have had a nice day with the family on Good Friday. So that's what it comes down to. I'm not going next Saturday because I can have a nice day with the family. Why would I go and watch that? And it's just, if they'd have just done, if they'd have won that game, you'd have been sort of, could get into trouble, but maybe Rochdale's on the cards. Maybe this is the great escape. Maybe, and I know that's me then asking way too much of them, but to just limply draw 1-1 and get relegated was just a bit like, you could have done this months ago. Like, you dragged it out. That's all you've done. You've dragged it out. You haven't really done anything.
Paul, when was the last time you didn't go to a game out of choice?
A league game at home.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know. The last game I definitely remember, me just going, I'm not going to that. Was the last game was the game against Bradford in the Premier League. So I can't think of many others since. Then I've just gone, I'm not going because I don't want to. I've just got other things to do. There's been cup games, but a league game, it's a long time.
Neil, I cut you off from saying something. Go
on. Just let me remember what it was. It was just more. Yeah, so it was just agreeing with Paul really around. It was almost the worst. What it was, the worst possible time for that team to lose their fire, their sort of the spark that we'd seen so much recently in sort of Biggie and sort of just wanting to win the ball and all that sort of stuff, and they equalised, and that last 15 minutes was just so tame and tentative, and it was just a huge letdown because even though nobody's expecting to stay up and all that, but just watching it and just feeling like there was just no way that we were going to get a goal. And I think the end when the whistle went and the sort of building up to something's going to happen, and then it was just silence, wasn't it? It was just people were just like, oh God, well that was a waste of time, then, wasn't it? Because it just nothing came from what should have been an all-out sort of fight for the death just to get that goal or to find a way to get a goal. And I guess the most we tried was throwing Burge up probably a minute too early. That was about it, really.
And I was thinking about this at the time when Willis went down. It was clearly Willis was going off, and I was just thinking, who would I bring on at this moment in time? What would I do? And I was like, he almost had to go off because Jody Jones was just running out of ideas. But part of me was like, would you just put Jody Jones at right back? Just for like 20 minutes of it doesn't matter. Just because if it would have been easy, if Dion Kelly-Evans had been on the bench, you'd be like, oh, it doesn't fucking matter, put Dion Kelly-Evans on because I know he's going to get into the box. But when it was Foley, you were like, it's just the most defensive sub you could have made. And I know you're taking off your right back, so it's like, you're going to make a defence. But it was almost like, what can you do in this situation to give the team still the belief that they're going forward? And sort of, maybe I'll put Biggie at right back and sort of put Riley in midfield. But that would give us then legs in the centre midfield, but also Biggie's still on the pitch to maybe something to happen. Or, just, I don't know, put fucking Kyle Reid at right back and just say, look, I know you're at right back, but obviously you're Kyle Reid. Just do what you want to do. Just do something. And
it's a good point. Sorry,
No, you're just like, because it was just like, and I know it sounds really harsh on Kevin Foley, but it's like the guy's just passed it and he's really slow. It's just like, that's what we need now is a really bold, creative move to basically unsettle Charlton a little bit, who are quite comfortable. And you're like, we've just basically done the most obvious, easy substitution in the world. And I think that from that moment on, I don't think we had another shot. And as you say, at full time, I think it was just sort of like you expected people to stream out, but no one really did. Like for a couple of minutes, it was all just sort of, oh, the final whistle's gone. Oh, okay. Because I know I've talked about this a lot over the years. It's just like you just think, most of the clubs in that situation would have probably forced 2 or 3 corners in the last couple of minutes. Or, had 10 corners in the second half and really fucking, laid siege. And we never did. We never did anything unexpected. We never tried to cause chaos. We just sort of stuck to what we were doing. And you were like, this isn't, this calls for something. Charlton are dealing with what we've got. Why don't we do something else? Even if it's just for 10 minutes, do or die. If we walk out 3-1 down, at least I can come on the podcast and go, wow, we fought like fuck to stay up. And I just don't think we did.
Losing Haynes didn't help. That was one thing I was going to say. It was just that I would have personally kept on Jody Jones. I think he was going through a little period where he was giving the ball away, and it was a 5-minute period of just him losing his mind a little bit. But I wouldn't have taken him off. I would have stuck with him. Him and Haynes were looking good on that left-hand side. Then obviously Haynes got injured as well, and then you go from having what seemed to be quite a nice sort of line down the left to basically a left back who couldn't run at all, and Carl Reid, who's just he wasn't doing what he's been doing recently, which was taking people on. He didn't quite have it in him again, and so we lost that side of the pitch. Obviously, the other side of the pitch we had Foley gone as well. He was on there instead of Willis, and we lost all sort of attacking intent through those bits as well, and that's why I wouldn't have taken Jody Jones off, even if it meant bringing Carl Reid on and putting him on the pitch as well. Like you say, it's a bold move, but move Jody Jones somewhere on the pitch, just try and freshen him up that way, rather than just because he's had a bad 5 minutes, pulling him off the pitch entirely. I mean, altogether, I thought he had a especially first half, I thought he was looking good, and just to pull him off and like for like with Reed didn't do it for me.
He put in one great ball in the second half.
He did, didn't he? That was an incredible cross,
which someone should have scored.
Yeah.
And for all those who say he don't have a right foot, he forced the keeper into a bit of a scrawling save
in
the first half with his right foot. But this comes back to the don't play Jordan Willis when he's... Jordan Willis was fucking Cafu. Play him at 60% fit, but he's not. He's Jordan Willis. So continually playing him at 60, 70% fit when you know that you've got to take him off because he's injured, to me just seems pointless. If he's Roy Keane and he's going to have that game against fucking Juve when he drags him to the final, fine, but he's not going to have that game. So playing him so you have to take him off is just fucking pointless. And we've done it how many times in the last couple of weeks? 4 or 5 times? Where it's like you've got 3 subs, but one of them you've got to use on Jordan Willis. It's just... And then the last 2 games, we've basically finished the game with 10 men because you've wasted one of your subs on a substitution you know you're going to have to make. Play players who are 100%, especially against fucking Rochdale. Like, there's no point not playing Dion Kelly-Evans against Rochdale. You're already relegated. So why Jordan Willis limping through 90 minutes again? It's just like, because I'm not Jordan Willis's biggest fan. However, I don't want him to pull up in the same way that John Eustace did because Strachan kept playing him when he was clearly not fit. It's like you could be doing that guy long-term damage by playing him at 67% fit. Because if he broke down with something properly, you know, that could be him out the game for a year. It's not fair on him either. So just fucking stop it. If he's not 100% fit, stop it. What, you know, we're not gaining anything from playing him.
You're being slightly disingenuous because I also think it's motivated by what I think is a common feeling that Dion Kelly-Evans isn't getting as much of a looking as he should.
No, mate, seriously. I saw it with John Eustace, that game against Grimsby when Strachan tried to save his ass. And he played John Eustace at about 10% fit. And John Eustace then didn't return for about 8 months. And you're like, how is that fair on the player? The players are always going to... Are you fit? Yes. Like we saw it with Stephen Hunt, he was like 38. Are you fit? Yes. When he clearly wasn't. If they're going to Jordan Willis, can you last 90 minutes? Yes. And we're taking him off after 60. I mean, it's like if it's 1 or 2 games, it's fine. So there's about 5 games on the bounce now that he started that we've had to take him off because he's not been able to complete 90 minutes. It's like, how's that benefiting him as a physical player? How he's clearly injured. He's clearly injured. So you're either exacerbating that injury or he's faking. One of the two. And I don't believe he's faking. So I believe you're making that injury. You're potentially going to make that injury a lot worse. And there's no need.
Could he not be playing him back into fitness? I mean, I agree with you. Overall, I agree with you because it's not like this isn't the semi-final of a cup or whatever. You'd think that the smartest thing to do would be to let him just have the end of the season off but maybe I'm not a personal trainer. I don't know what I don't even know what the injury is specifically, but it could be part of his rehabilitation.
But you're playing him back to fitness with 4 games to go. I think surely rest and games.
Well, intuitively that's what it would seem like it should be, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Back in, come back fully fit in pre-season. You wonder how many players' careers are ruined because they're just continually playing on injuries, where it might just be best for them to say, look, just go away, get yourself physically fit, come back, and you'll be not only will you be a better player, but you'll be better for us. It's like, it's no coincidence that Roger Federer had 6 months out of tennis and he's back to winning tournaments again. Because sometimes your body needs that break to recover. So just like let him have that break. If he was our top goal scorer, I might be singing a different song. I might be. But as he's not, I just don't see the benefit of flogging that dead horse. I think it's unfair on him.
Especially now.
Yeah.
I think before, personal opinion is I think Robbins probably sees him. He's the captain. It's almost though we didn't show it, almost that sort of do or die. We're still trying to stay up kind of mentality. So just keep playing him for the sake of playing him because he thinks he's one of our best players. But then he played him against Rochdale, which is the one that I couldn't understand because the season's gone now, isn't it? So why would you do it? There really isn't any reason now from this point onwards.
No. Have we got any final observations to make on Charlton, or should we wrap this up? No,
I don't think I've got anything.
I think we've had quite enough howling at the moon for one evening. We are going to be back in a few weeks to do an end of season review that we recorded last October. But we're not going to, I think, as Paul said, I'm not sure any of us are going to be at the next. How many games are left? 2?
Yeah.
I'm at the home one.
So, oh yeah, of course, you'll be at the home one. But I think even still, we'll probably cover that game in some brief detail at the end of the season. And then do a kind of end of season awards, if we can contemplate such a thing. But we will speak to you again then. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, it's at Neil Lamptey Show on Twitter. It's neillampteyshow@gmail.com. And the most important thing I would suggest to you is heading over to neillampteyshow.com, the Neil Allison revamped website, which is looking pretty fucking slick.
Waste of time, won't it? We're now bloody League 2.
But you can head over there, you can listen to the podcast on there, and you can find different little bits. Anything to add before we wrap up then? No.
If people want to send through who they think was player of the year, like worst signing and the usual jazz, or if anyone has anything witty or interesting they think could make the review slightly more bearable.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Keep an eye out on Twitter for different sort of questions and stuff. I know that Paul, who is at GMK Online, will normally be doing a lot of build-up stuff if he can bear to look at Twitter over the next few weeks. Okay, thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, mate.
And thank you, listener. Bye.